Suppose the Nephilim stories you've heard were false. Imagine. The Great Flood, meant to purge the globe of sin, did not destroy giants, the terrifying offspring of heavenly creatures and mortal women. They endured trials. How? More importantly, how did they survive the Great Flood to leave their mark on history? In the Bible, the Great Flood killed all life, save Noah, his family, and a few animals. The Nephilim stayed. How could it happen? Does the ark have a secret giant? Perhaps another mysterious influence was at play. Today we explore the Nephilim's fortitude and return. It may differ from expectations. We'll unveil Ham's doomed lineage's deep mysteries, the intriguing genetic mutations that have endured, and the giant's survivability, despite divine judgment. From Canaan's giants to Goliath, you'll be surprised. Expect a new perspective on the Big Flood and mystery entities. Keep reading to learn the giant's secret story, which many don't know. The universe began as a majestic painting painted in creation's vibrant colors. God created the heavens and earth, giving them life. In His wisdom, He created humans in His image, gave them life, and placed them in a rich garden full of bounty. In ancient days, mankind walked in perfect connection with the divine. We see the world's purity quickly erode as the story proceeds. Once enormous celestial creatures decided to come to Earth, bringing their strength and origins from regions beyond our knowledge, according to ancient traditions. These spirits were rebellious and had broken the Creator's pristine equilibrium. In love with earthly beauty, they married human women. The Nephilim, a lineage of unprecedented beings, sprang from the sacred union of the divine and the mortal. In ancient times, giants were powerful beings that stood out from the crowd. Despite their size and energy, their entrance cast a shadow deeper than awe or veneration. Behold, the Nephilim, towering figures of power, yet their own souls whispered corruption. Their presence stimulated creation's harmony. They became potent symbols of disobedience, encapsulating the chaos that follows violation. Ambitious creatures sought authority over others, causing turmoil and evil. Under their influence, humanity fell into moral deterioration. Men's souls hardened into stone, turning them into ruthless and greedy individuals. The Creator regarded His creation as good, but today, it's drowning in sin. God saw the earth in ruins, a monument to the Nephilim and their loyal kin's havoc. Bloodshed, avarice, and anarchy were wherever He looked. The grieving voices of the oppressed rose in the night, a symphony of sadness. What He saw in His beloved creation hurt Him deeply. After being made in His image, humanity became deformed and unrecognizable. The country looked to be stained by corruption because it had permeated it. His justice led Him to cleanse the earth of evil, remove sin, and allow creation to start over. So began the deluge, which changed the earth's geography. Everything was engulfed by water from the sky and the earth. For 40 days and 40 nights, the skies opened, and rain deluged the world. Nobody survived the big deluge: humans, mammals, fowl, and even the smallest things. Noah, his family, and the ark's animals survived. At that hallowed moment, justice balanced judgment and charity. God gave redemption and a supernatural reset for history with the Great Flood. So, we face a fundamental riddle that has intrigued researchers and theologians throughout history. How can the Nephilim survive after the Great Deluge, which was meant to purge the earth of wickedness? Why did Goliath, Og of Bashan, and the Anakim rise to power after the flood? Are they the descendants of those mythical giants, or does their reappearance indicate a deep and mysterious truth? We must explore Genesis's complex tale of ancestry, inheritance, and divine guidance to find the answers. We'll uncover the sacred text's riches in this narrative. Let's examine Noah's family, particularly Ham, who dominated this fascinating story. Consider that the Nephilim's genetic features may still be latent, waiting for the right time to emerge. We will also know that virtue and evil fight, even with the greatest heavenly favor. One day, a story of survival, a legacy, and the eternal fight for humanity's soul emerged. It is a narrative that invites us to explore time's secrets. The story of the Nephilim takes place when heaven and earth were more connected. According to Genesis, fallen angels were driven by curiosity, vanity, or a desire to oppose God's order. At that time, the sons of God looked at women and saw their beauty. From these sacred couplings, the powerful Nephilim were born. Behold, these progeny were giants with superhuman power and knowledge. Despite being called heroes of old and men of renown, their presence cost them. Nephilim arrived and disrupted creation. Humanity fell into violence, greed, and depravity under their power. The world was full of depravity, and people wanted to ruin themselves. In a dark and turbulent period, God was sad. He saw that his effort was soiled. One of his goals in creating the universe was to promote harmony and goodwill. This heavenly vision was endangered by the Nephilim and their celestial ancestors' dominance. The Almighty decided to cleanse the earth with a massive downpour, changing the time. Retribution was not the goal, but healing and restoration. After immense wickedness, the flood cleansed the planet, giving humanity a chance to start over. If the deluge was supposed to wipe out all wickedness, why do we still hear about giants after the waters recede? What could explain the Nephilim's eternal legacy? We must explore the Nephilim and their impact on Earth to understand this. Besides being tall, these individuals embodied a rare combination of divine and earthy. In a fantastic narrative, they combined the holy with the worldly to create a creature that transcended creation. Some scholars believe that the Nephilim had a heavenly essence that could survive their earthly bodies. This idea opens intriguing possibilities for how their traits may have returned in future generations. Let's revisit the story before the flood. Imagine vast lands governed by gorgeous beings, whose presence aroused amazement and awe. These powerful beings wanted to rule the world and conquer others, gaining strength and wealth. During a period of enormous upheaval, their actions divided their neighbors and cast a shadow over the region. In those days, desire drowned out heavenly counsel, dimming virtue. God's deluge was a massive decision. It called back to the lost path and reminded many of their genuine purpose. He saved Noah and his family, despite his desire to cleanse the earth. Noah was a moral example in a terrible period. He was untroubled by his peers and firm in God. Humanity would have a fresh chance via him. Though frequently overlooked, Noah's survival carried a hefty burden, a holy obligation to prevent previous mistakes from repeating. As the floodwaters rose, the Nephilim and the rest of the planet perished. Though they were gone, their legacy lingered over the land. Did they die completely, or did their spirits survive? Might Noah's descendants have held on to their genetic inheritance until the time came to awaken it? These questions invite us to explore the flood story's deep depths and Nephilim mystery. The tale will show how Noah's descendants, especially Ham and his fated offspring Canaan, became giant-like. Let us examine genetics, divine curses, and ancient legends of giants who lived after the flood. Every piece of this story helps us understand the Nephilim's legacy, and its role in our eternal struggle between right and wrong. Think about the Nephilim and their return after the deluge. What stories may arise from ancient writings about their reemergence? To find out, we must follow Noah and his family, focusing on Ham, one of his 3 sons. After the floodwaters receded and the huge ark rested on Mount Ararat, humanity's tale began again. Noah and his family were tasked with repopulating the earth and starting again once the floodwaters receded. It was a holy order to multiply and populate the earth. As humanity's story evolves, even the best intentions can create unexpected consequences. Noah, a godly man, planted a vineyard at a crucial moment. This deed was a symbol of optimism, rejuvenation, and a sacred promise of prosperity for future generations. However, it was a turning point with major consequences. Noah became drunk after drinking wine from his vineyard on a fateful day. In a moment of weakness, he lay naked in his tent. Noah's son Ham entered the tent to see his father's condition. Ham mocked his father and told Shem and Japheth. Japheth and Shem responded differently. To respect their father, they carefully took a cloth and entered the tent to softly cover him, walking backward. Their actions showed honor, humility, and reverence. When he realized what had happened, Noah was devastated. His reaction was swift and confident. Casting a curse on Ham's son Canaan, he said, "The lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." This saying applied to Ham's descendants beyond Canaan. What made Noah condemn Canaan instead of Ham? Great minds have debated this subject for ages. Canaan may have been involved, but some believe the curse foretold Ham's descendants' behavior. Though its source is unknown, the curse set the stage for an eerie legacy. The Ham lineage, notably that of Canaan, was defined by disobedience, revolt, and moral deterioration. They included people with Nephilim-like strength and height. Ham's descendants may have inherited Nephilim genetics. This notion requires us to consider genetics' essence. Oh, gigantism, a feature that can lie latent for centuries, waiting for the ideal time to emerge. It silently waits for gene alignment to awaken in DNA strands. Imagine a secret river flowing gently beneath the earth. According to ancient accounts, Ham's bloodline may have harbored Nephilim genetic markers while waiting for the appropriate time to appear. Giants' rise following the flood supports this idea. These creatures were Nephilim lineage descendants. They demonstrate the persistent effects of wrongdoing. The Nephilim ghost persisted after the Great Deluge, which purified the earth of evil. It seemed like powerful giants were roaming the planet, testing humanity's faith. I wonder what woke these powerful beings up again. Was it fate, or was there a greater purpose? Perhaps it represents humanity's struggle against evil. The curse on Canaan was significant. It warned against hubris, disobedience, and defiance of God. From Ham's bloodline, humanity quickly returns to sin, despite a new beginning. Later, Canaan was rife with legends of powerful giants. A magnificent tapestry of stories spans the millennia. These powerful giants, from the Anakim to the Rephaim, frightened anyone who crossed their path. Their presence was significant. They showed the difference between light and shade by discussing the eternal conflict between virtue and wickedness. Every encounter with a giant tested their faith, bravery, and divine guidance. The Nephilim's return makes us consider our own path. Are we overlooking internal forces? Do our ancestors' burdens or preferences pull us down? How do we handle this? Although we are bound by our heritage, Ham's story shows that we may shape our own fate. Righteousness, humility, and obedience can free us from corruption and lead to salvation. Over time, The Nephilim's qualities transcend historical importance. It's a somber reminder that wrongdoing persists and that we must be vigilant. It invites us to examine our hearts and find anything that defies God. In this, we follow the overarching plan of existence to reflect the Creator's beauty and grandeur. The holy narrative's Ham and lineage story is intriguing and important. At first glance, it seems inconsequential, but it shapes humanity's fate. Noah, a dedicated servant of the Lord, rose from the floodwaters eager to start over. He grew a vineyard and made wine. Though basic, this deed started a cascade of events that would affect many generations. Noah enjoyed his handiwork long ago. Perhaps he overindulged or miscalculated the wine's power. In a silly moment, he was drunk and naked in his tent. This wasn't just a negative judgment. It showed how fragile even the most moral people are. This scenario included Ham, one of Noah's 3 sons. Ham did not show his father's suffering any care or regard, but he mocked him, telling his brothers Shem and Japheth of their father's shame. Shem and Japheth headed in another direction. When they returned to the tent, they covered their father with a cloak and avoided looking at him. They showed dignity, humility, and a sincere desire to spare Noah pain in their actions. Ham's acts revealed a disturbing lack of reverence, a disregard for authority, and maybe the seeds of a revolt among his descendants. As he awoke, Noah was deeply impacted by the events. This reaction was personal and foresighted. He cursed Ham's youngest son, Canaan. Noah solemnly said, "Cursed be Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be to his brothers." This may seem harsh because Canaan was not personally involved. However, as we investigate, this was not just revenge. The declaration held heavenly significance and resonated for years. Thus, Canaan's descendants were notorious for revolt, depravity, and moral decay. Their homelands were full of idol worship, turmoil, and practices that contradicted God. In this difficult bloodline, there were bright physical qualities that hinted at a Nephilim connection. Giants, superhuman power, and awe-inspiring size were once among Ham's descendants. This was no coincidence. These qualities showed the Nephilim lineage's longevity. How is that? Considering genetics complexities helps us understand. Within the fabric of life, features like gigantism may lurk for centuries until the proper gene mix is found. Just like blue eyes or red hair may stay dormant over the millennia, only to reappear in a future descendant, so may the ancient markings of the Nephilim return to humans in unanticipated forms. This astonishing event shows how giants survived the deluge. They were remnants of a bleak human history. The nations developed from Ham's bloodline and traveled far and wide, establishing themselves in unjust and heavenly defying places. They included the evil Canaanites, who defied God's chosen people, the Israelites. The inhabitants of Canaan worshipped false gods, sacrificed children, and followed methods that led to their ruin and condemnation. They showed the consequences of disobedience and defiance. However, the story continues. Strong and powerful Ham descendants acquired fame. Famous people include Goliath, who fought David. Over 9 feet tall, Goliath wore 125 pounds of armor and brandished a spear, the weight of a blacksmith's hammer. He was feared by anyone who met him. A shepherd child defeated Goliath, a powerful giant. Despite all odds, this young hero won with a sling and 5 smooth stones. This win showed faith over fear, not just talent over strength. Goliath's demise proves that shadows in no way can match God's might. The reappearance of Goliath reminds us that darkness may endure, but it also emphasizes the need to stay true to our convictions. Every age faces enormous giants, challenges, temptations, and impediments that threaten to trap us. Just as David trusted the Lord's might, so should we trust in supernatural might. We learn a powerful lesson about our choices and legacies from Ham's role in this story. Ham's decisions, or inactions, shaped his lineage. His mockery of his father opened a spirit of disrespect that reverberated through history. Even in this problematic bloodline, there were redemption ways. People can accept the divine plan and free themselves from their ancestors' mistakes. This story invites us to consider our own paths. Are we cultivating dignity, humility, and faithfulness? Do we continue resistance and disregard? Our decisions now will shape future generations. Let us leave virtuous legacies, believing that divine constancy continues even in difficult circumstances. One of the greatest mysteries of religious history is the Nephilim's reappearance after the flood. To understand this story, we must explore Ham's vast genetic ancestry. Gigantism, which distinguished the Nephilim, is similar to recessive genetic characteristics, which can wait generations to emerge. This theory is based on traditional knowledge and modern science. Imagine a river beneath the surface, ever present, yet waiting to emerge. The Nephilim's bloodline history unfolded. Since recessive features are always present, they are intriguing. Many generations may go without blue eyes or red hair, only to reappear unexpectedly. Ham's descendants might have inherited a genetic propensity to gigantism, akin to a hidden treasure. These genes were like seeds hiding in the dirt, waiting for the right circumstances to stir. Giant children were more likely to be born when two people with these qualities married and had children. Giants returned to Canaan in ancient times, a natural event. Let us proceed. Noah cursed Canaan, Ham's son, in the biblical tale. Some believe this curse is a heavenly edict, but it also describes Canaan's descendants' physical and cultural features. Learned people believe Canaan's curse caused his ancestors' moral and spiritual decline. These descendants were notorious for defying God and worshiping false idols. They built corrupt, violent cities like the ones before the deluge. They included shining persons in virtue and presence. Giants, who were enormous beings, frightened everyone who saw them. Consider how encountering such beings may change your thoughts and spirit. Giants were more than tall. They were ominous. Their immensity radiated power and otherworldliness. In the minds of the common people, they echoed the Nephilim, powerful creatures that once ruled the earth with arrogant grandeur. These creatures were so formidable that they caused entire legions to tremble with fear. Goliath, a legendary figure, exemplifies this reality. See a 9-foot warrior with unrivaled skill. His armor weighed approximately 125 pounds, and his spear tip was as heavy as a weaver's beam, measuring his might. It seemed impossible to defeat him, but David, a shepherd boy with just faith and a sling, proved it possible. Goliath's connection to Ham's cursed bloodline enhances the story. Ham's descendants were the Philistines, Goliath's people. Many years after the flood, Canaan's big myths persisted. In history, we uncover amazing signs that indicate tall people walked the world. Beyond religious books, Josephus and the Sumerian king list describe tales of rulers and soldiers who stood large in stature and mythology. These testimonies match religious legends, showing that giants returned as part of history. Imagine the gravity of this inherited gift. What may the Nephilim's awakening tell about sin and corruption's persistent nature? Though the flood washed away civilization's faults, defiance persisted in humans' hearts. we must confront our difficult selves after this enlightenment. Sin follows the soul, changes shape, and finds new ways to appear. Even today, we see the repercussions of this fight in our conflicts, both internal and external. There's hope. Giants returning proves God's purpose is unshakable. He uses imperfect means to carry out his holy intentions, despite unrighteousness. The story of David and Goliath shows how faith and bravery can overcome the greatest obstacles. No matter how strong the opponent, the Almighty is stronger. This timeless lesson resonates with our lives today. We may face giants, impossible obstacles, on our trip. Hope is our constant companion with the divine. We see a vast tale when we consider the Nephilim's genetic heritage. Their reappearance is a strong reminder of the eternal conflict between right and wrong. It makes us consider our paths and our legacy. Should we cultivate virtue and truth, or let corruption grow? It's our call. Goliath and the Philistines have captivated people for centuries. It is a story of strength, courage, and victory, the triumph of the weak over overwhelming challenges. This narrative has a deep relationship to Ham's fatal ancestry and the Nephilim's terrifying presence. Human, gigantic Goliath. See a 9-foot giant. Even the strongest warriors feared his size and might. With his mountainous armor and chaos-forged weapons, Goliath was a terrifying presence. He challenged the Israelite army to send a champion to fight him in a battle of strength with a thunderous shout. The Israelites stopped in their steps as the challenge resonated silently for 40 days, instilling terror. They saw a strong guy who seemed to come from another world. Really, who was Goliath? His narrative begins with Ham and Canaan's descendants. This story included the rebellious Philistines, Goliath's relatives. They carried the Nephilim's ancient whispers, magnificent giants born from the holy marriage of heavenly beings and mortal women. The Nephilim's essence survived the Great Flood, which destroyed most of the world's evil. Instead, they silently exist under the ashes like blazing embers, waiting for the right time to ignite. These features culminated in Goliath, a massive creature whose presence on the battlefield seemed to taunt mortals. The symbolism of Goliath's height made him terrifying. Goliath symbolizes the instability and depravity of the world since the time of the Nephilim. Being around him forced the Israelites to face their deepest anxieties. Would they trust the Almighty or dread their enemy? For 40 days, mistrust and despair shrouded Israel's camp. Goliath's rule seemed unassailable forever. David, a humble shepherd boy, came unarmed and defenseless, yet his spirit defied the circumstances. David made up for his physical weakness with faith. With only a sling and 5 smooth stones, he approached the battlefield with a greater force than any weapon, his faith in the Lord. As Goliath taunted him, David bravely said, "You approach me with sword and spear and javelin, but I confront you in the name of the Lord Almighty." These words were pure truth. David knew the fight was for the Lord. The stone hit Goliath's forehead beyond physical impact. This powerful act showed that shadows are inconsequential in the face of divine plans, no matter how big they are. After Goliath fell, invincibility collapsed. During a chaotic period, the Philistine army withdrew in bewilderment. The Israelites celebrated their victory because of one person's unflinching fortitude, despite fear. The significance of Goliath's demise runs deep in our story. It shows that light always triumphs over darkness, no matter how deep or ferocious. Heirs of Ham and the Nephilim, Goliath is a powerful giant. The eternal conflict between right and wrong is symbolized by this bloodline. His collapse shows that turning to a higher power may help us overcome even the biggest challenges. The story of Goliath reminds us of the giants we face in our own lives. Fear, uncertainty, vanity, and sin, though small, are present. Like the Israelites, we might feel immobilized by these enormous monsters, unsure of our future. The story of David shows us that we may prevail in life with faith and humility. We may overcome future obstacles by drawing on God's almighty strength. The Goliath story goes beyond war and massive defeat. It speaks of hope. Hope that, even when the problems appear insurmountable, a route ahead is always possible. Belief defeats anxiety. Light triumphs over gloom. It urges us to face obstacles with confidence, reminding us that the powerful force that vanquished Goliath is still within grasp. One of the most famous people in religious history is Goliath, a 9-foot warrior. His story is more than a combat account. It knits together history, linking Ham and Canaan's doomed bloodline to the eternal struggle between right and wrong. Goliath was repeated. Embroidered into a magnificent tapestry, he was a link to the Nephilim bloodline that had predated the flood. His existence shows how misbehavior has enduring effects, often beyond our comprehension. First, we must consider Goliath's time to understand him. See the cursed Philistines, Ham's descendants. Ancient Canaan was full of history and conflict. This unique country saw a terrible battle when divine powers clashed and souls were decided. Historically, the Philistines were powerful and oppressed adjacent tribes. Attracted by false gods, the people turned their backs on the one true God of Israel and went astray. In many ways, they symbolized moral deterioration since the Nephilim era. Goliath symbolized this heritage. His imposing size, power, and aura evoked fear and tyranny. He was fearsome on the battlefield, armored, weighing over 125 pounds, and wielding a spear with a weaver's beam shaft. For 40 days, he insulted Israel's troops, daring them to send a champion to fight him. Not merely empty boasts, his words were meant to create despair and pessimism in his opponents. Goliath personified pride, hatred, and disobedience against God's will. The Goliath story goes beyond physical power to portray a deep spiritual battle under the surface. The Israelites were in terror under King Saul during a time of considerable uncertainty. Goliath represented their deepest fears and vulnerabilities. David, a young shepherd, appeared in their grief. David, unlike his battle-hardened opponents, believed in himself. Instead of a giant, he saw Goliath as a blasphemer who dared to confront God. David approached the battlefield with a sling, 5 polished stones, and steadfast confidence in God. The next event is praised in religious writings. David smote Goliath in the forehead with a single stone, sending him tumbling to the ground. It was an inexplicable victory, won by unflinching confidence in heavenly might. The bravery of David proved that even the mightiest Goliath may be overcome when we trust in a higher power. The defeat of Goliath showed David's bravery and confirmed that the divine plan would succeed despite the obstacles. Goliath's story continues after his death. It invites us to contemplate evil's nature and persistent presence. If Nephilim-like giants like Goliath appear again, what deep truths may they disclose about our world? Are there modern giants, insurmountable expressions of pride, greed, and injustice? Knowing this reality, we acknowledge that these giants, real or symbolic, are powerless against the Almighty. Giants have returned to Canaan, reminding us that light and darkness fight on. It urges us to face our fears and uncertainties acknowledge our Goliaths, and believe in the almighty power to save us. We are encouraged to tackle life's challenges with unshakable faith in the supernatural, like David did. The story of Goliath inspires us to face obstacles with confidence and reminds us that the divine can defeat any giant. The fall of Goliath foreshadows Christ's ultimate victory over sin and death. The resurrection of Jesus gives the same hope to the Israelites as David's victory. Evil will not win. Our encounters with giants, whether external or internal, demonstrate this potential. We fight a cosmic conflict in this vast story, but we don't rely on our own power. Trust in the one who defeated the mightiest giants. As we contemplate Goliath, remember that our challenges are shared. They form a magnificent story about the divine redeeming and restoring all things. Take courage while facing giants, personal difficulties, social wrongs, or spiritual battles, for victory is possible. Like David, we must continue with confidence, trusting that the Lord will prepare us for every tribulation. By taking this trip, we create a timeless story of bravery, belief, and righteousness' eternal victory against evil. As we end our study of the Nephilim and their mysterious post-flood life, I think about the many layers of biblical history that frequently go overlooked. Many of us accept common wisdom, yet when we dig deeper, a richness of meaning emerges that challenges all we thought we knew. The idea that the Nephilim can survive via lineage, concealed but not obliterated, makes us think about how corruption and sin might affect future generations, even after the pronouncement of judgment. This story shows that even malice may be cleansed by one event, which resonates. The Nephilim's legacy shaped future generations following the deluge. This is a powerful reminder of how history and the actions of our ancestors may shape our world for better or ill. Consider the timeless beliefs as you watch today's video. What happens if the story goes in unexpected ways? I encourage you to explore these ideas, seek various perspectives, and have tough, fascinating conversations. This voyage will help you understand eternal storylines and discover how historical whispers affect our lives. If this video interests you, like, subscribe, and share it with other searchers of life's deep secrets. Continue asking questions, traveling, and seeking the truth.